Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this call with the Institute for Family Business, our very close partners in so much of what we do at Smith & Williamson, for the highlights of the latest of our family business surveys, which we cover every 2 years. And before I start speaking with our guest, the wonderful Roger de Freitas, I wanted to give some sense of the highlights of what we've found. But first of all, a thank you to the IFB for asking their members to join this and for the ongoing relationship that we value so much with the IFB, both working with your members and supporting you in your advocacy for public policy. We really value that. And secondly, so many of your members were the people that listened kindly to our ideas for this survey, the so-called beta phase, where we tested our idea and you helped tweak it and guide us. And then for the actual survey, many more of you answered that. We had a record number, about 149 people completing the survey. So we really are, as somebody said, deep into statistical validity for it. So I'm just going to give you a flavour of this. Theodora, next slide, please. What we did was we asked 3 main questions in this survey, and from that we built out a range of ideas. Now, the first point, governance, this is covered so often, but how does something become popular? Well, often by being popular. And the key word here is demonstrably. Very few people would disagree with that. But then we asked this question, and that did find all sorts of responses amongst the people that kindly completed what we were asking. And one of the key points here was, how does one start? What is the beginning? And of course, if one has to begin something, there might be reasons not to do that. And all sorts of fascinating responses came from that. Please realize I'm giving you a teaser now because we'd love you to read this survey, and you can receive that either directly from me at Smith & Williamson or from IFB. We then looked at the idea of mission. Now, again, constitutions are a very popular subject. We wanted to have a slightly different slant on this to keep it really fresh. And again, the beta stage of checking with 13 families was absolutely fascinating. All those families either have a family business or a single family office or both. And what we were looking at here was really, how could a family use governance in a sense of mission, i.e. determination? So how do you start your process? Of course, the message of this survey is there is no end. That's the ongoing journey, which we're going to come to. And how does one use the mission sense of governance to attract and retain the engagement of all the family, but especially the next generation? And lastly, formal governance structures. Now, these could be everything from a letter of wishes, a shareholder agreement, a family mission statement, perhaps in tandem with the mission of an operating business or operating businesses, an area where I particularly love to get engaged with families and help them. And again, this next generation theme. And as we said 2 years ago in our previous survey, it might be next generations given longevity. An entrepreneur or the governing element of a family may be in their 70s, he or she, and have 2 generations, adult generations, perhaps thinking about getting engaged. Just to look a little bit more closely, perhaps the next slide, please, Theodora. Here are the key themes. Now, a number of you have been kind enough to hear me speak about the first one, corporate governance and family governance. I'm convinced by both my own experience advising families on this and listening and learning from many, many others, that a family has a great deal to learn from the corporate governance of a family business, whether they've divested from it or they retain it. But likewise, the corporate can learn so much from the family. And where those two need to be connected and integrated strategically by the right governance, then it can be a really positive and enriching experience. Adrian Cadbury's report in 1992, that's a long time ago, that really was a sea change for people thinking about governance in the corporate sphere. Families come more recently, but I'm thankful to say through the activities of firms such as mine, to be frank, or the activities of wonderful organizations like the IFB, this has become regarded as something of greater value and demonstrably useful. The next piece, values, purpose, mission. Well, those are in a specific order. Some of the people we talked about put them in different orders, but this was the general order that we felt was logical. Begin with the bedrock, and then how is that activated into goals, and what is the specific mission? So that's a sense of destination, but it may not be a destination that's ever reached. That may evolve. Now, family meetings and retreats is obvious what those refer to, But sometimes, much as a child might say, Daddy or Mummy, what do you actually do in the office in days when people went to the office? What actually is your first hour? It's a great question, by the way, and it's sometimes a hard one to answer. How do I actually populate the calendar of family meeting or retreats? We're going to hear from Roger. They spend nearly a week in America with their family retreats. What do you actually do? It's a fascinating practical area which we looked into in the survey. And then wide-ranging views of family constitutions. There's a range of views. Most people regard them as positive, many as a key foundation governance document. And yet there's one family who take a view, which you're going to hear, which is not such like that. Anyway, a variety. And as ever, dialogue and interaction with the families engaging in the survey was absolutely fascinating. And then an area which I personally find really intriguing, the family as a brand. And this is where a family might be developing a sense of its brand after or beyond a family business, with or without a well-known brand manufactured by that business. And clearly families might be in transition on the journey of a family business and a product of that business. All may bear the name of the family, or they may not. And even if they don't, there may still be a connection in the public mind with that brand. We sense there's more here, and we're going to return to that for another study. Theodore, the next slide, please. So here we have the most sort of likely pull quote I felt just to complete my early views of this high-level summary of the survey. And this can be the situation I've alluded to as to where there's a less positive engagement in this process and where we get control. Now, control can be a necessary boardroom governance function of collective deliberation and decision-making. That's the positive. Or it can be a very vertical and very on-high process, which is less positive, the horizontal versus the vertical. And we look at those areas in this survey, and Roger and I are going to touch on that. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Theodora. So this is it. I mean, I felt this from my experience advising families, from people who've been doing it before me or with more experience than me, people I respect, people I hear others respect in this space. The point about this, it is absolutely, it is ongoing, it's evolving, it must have engagement. And that idea, the present participle, the continuous present of the seeking of, that is the best way I can summarize the learnings of this survey, which we then go into much more detail in the material of that, which of course we hope you might like to see. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go on to what really you've all been looking forward to, I imagine, which is my discussion with the absolutely wonderful Roger de Freitas and learning about the lessons from his family who have had so much experience of this ongoing seeking of effective family governance. Thank you.